Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Svalbard, The Weight of the Mask, out October 6 on Nuclear Blast. This album has 9 tracks, 44 minutes in length, and this is the band's 4th full-length studio album. They are a British post-hardcore band. As far as the design goes, the album starts off very consistent. The first 3 songs have a lot of similarities between them in the sound, in the experience, in the atmosphere that they create. The same could be said with a closing song on the record, which allows you to feel like the album kind of goes full circle. But every single song in between them feels very volatile. There's a little bit of chaos here. There's definitely 2 sides of a single coin. Some songs a little bit more melancholic, offering a darker perspective, a more introspective perspective of this record, and then mixing in some more extroverted moments, allowing the record to not be as linear as it starts, and definitely still be connected with that linearity, but be more fluid, more dynamic, more overall engaging. So an interesting design that it wasn't easy for me to grasp from the get-go. It was an album that took me a few times going through it, and in order for this design to not deviate me from the path that the album puts you on, that the album has in store for you as a listener. Now, as far as the sound is concerned, I really enjoy the rich nature of the sound. It feels like a rich sounding album, even though it's not super layered. It's a little bit more textured than it is layered, and it definitely depends a lot on the intensity that it has. Now, the intensity on this record is not the same sort of intensity from the first to the last song. The intensity varies, but it stays as one of the main focal points of what the sound allows you to experience. You can experience intensity in a way that's exteriorized, and you can experience intensity in a way that's interiorized. This album has that ability to keep that as the red line that connects the songs, but sound-wise offering you 2 different perspectives of it. This makes the album have a sense of cohesiveness, even though it's very dynamic, even though it's very fluid. And if you look at the middle portion of this record, you even see a little bit of chaos coming into fruition, because it's really hard to tell where you're going, where you're heading, or where this album is trying to take you. But the sound has that rich nature to it. A lot of that rich nature really comes from the drum sound. The drum sound offers a warmth, which is really important. It offers some depth, even though at times it's completely voided of it, but it offers still enough, at least to make the songs feel a little bit more robust, a little bit more complete, and really finding a way of making the songs feel fuller, giving a little bit more energy to the tracks. And I use the word fuller because the guitar sound, for the most part, is very driven, is very linear, it's very concise. And when you have a guitar sound that really cuts through, that really cuts deep, that's dripped in emotion, but allows that emotion not to go over the edges, over the box. It doesn't allow it to completely overflood the record. It keeps it controlled, it keeps it more pinpoint. You tend to have a much colder sounding record. This album is not as cold as it could have been, because the drums really add a little bit of balance to that and make the sound feel overall a little bit warmer. So it's really important to have these 2 elements that are offering different experiences work well with one another, so that the experience is more lukewarm and not necessarily cold and not necessarily hot. Now, vocally, the dynamic between the vocalists is really important in order to define this yin and yang that the album has, this interiorization of feelings and this exteriorization of feelings. This album is all about that. It's all about how you express these 2 moments. So having a very good dynamic between vocalists definitely allows those moments to be better defined within the construction of the songs, and then within the overall reflection of the album. I enjoyed the vocal performance. I thought it was on point. Using some choirs or some backing vocals in a choir style setting adds warmth as well, even though in those times it may come across a little bit depleted of warmth and feel a little bit more colder, a little bit more emotional. It's still adding volume, adds warmth, adds depth to the overall sound experience. So I really enjoyed the vocals. I thought they were definitely one of the many bright spots that this record has. This is a very complete album from start to finish, from design to sound to execution to how the vocals come together. It's an album that definitely has an atmospheric touch to it, perhaps a little bit better defined in the middle portion of the album, not necessarily at the beginning and at the end, but in the middle portion of the album. but still a very engaging journey from start to end, not falling into patterns, not falling into routines. When you think there's a pattern emerging, the tracks change completely, the album changes completely. So it's a record that really keeps you on your toes, and it's one of those albums that it's going to sound different, and the experience is going to be different depending on where you are, depending on where your head is when you decide to press play on it. Having the ability to play off the feelings of the listener definitely gives great shelf life to an album like this. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Defiance. This is the third track. Intense musically and vocally, and the drums create that consistent backdrop, allowing for a more dark, melodic, melancholic, if you will, guitar sound. The clean vocals help emphasize some of that melancholy, while the harsh vocals emphasize the overall intensity that the track has. It's a track that's constantly moving between these two worlds. The heavier side of the sound on this album with a more melodic, melancholic, almost stripped down sound that this record also offers. This track has a little bit of those two worlds, finds a way of conjugating them both in perfect harmony. Next we have November. This is one of my favorite songs on the album. It starts off very stripped down, guitars, vocals, eventually the drums come in order to offer some oomph. They don't offer a lot more than that at the beginning, and it feels like it's a very atmospheric track, and it feels like it's going to be a track that's always going to be the way it starts, that there's no room for growth, that this is a song that's going to be almost the ballad, the melancholic ballad of the record. But it's not the case. When you reach the midway point, the song completely changes its essence. It erupts almost like a sleeping volcano. Everything felt very subdued, very controlled, but a spark is all that it took, and this volcano erupted, and then it became a track that feels extremely extroverted. All the emotions that were bottled up in the first half of the song completely become naked and vulnerable in the second half of the song. It's really a track that has two different sides, and those sides are clear, defined by the middle point of this song. What you get in the beginning is definitely not what you're going to get at the end. A track that, depending on where you start with it, like if I was to show you the first minute of this song or show you the last minute of this song, not in a million years you would think those two would belong together. But it's a track that explodes at the right time, with the right energy, with the right sound, with the right experience. And it's also a song that vocally has that same sort of explosion. And when you have those two coming in together, there is a pattern, there is a sense of continuity that's really important in order for you to be able to have a track with these two different polar opposites ends coming together and meeting somewhere down the middle. Last but definitely not least, Be My Tune. It's a song that sounds slightly brighter, sounds bigger, sounds brighter. I'm not saying it's a happy song. I'm not saying it's a feel-good song. It's still a very emotionally driven song, but it definitely has a little bit of a bigger sound. The guitars on this track don't feel as narrow. They don't feel as penetrating. The drums help create a little bit more of a thicker experience all around. I mean, they still have those penetrating moments, they still have those penetrating riffs, but overall the track feels like it has more room to breathe. The sound has more room to breathe. The harsh vocals on this track definitely add a sense of aggression, and that allows some consistency to stay true from start to end. I love how it closes off, because it definitely closes off with a softer atmosphere, with a softer vocal presence. It's a track that has a very nice way of ending, giving you definitely a sense of finality and not necessarily this abrupt energy that just doesn't have anywhere to go. It's a song that knows exactly when to walk out of the way and be finished with. Great way of finishing a song that has overall that much bigger, brighter essence as far as the atmosphere and sound are concerned. This is it, Svalbard with The Weight of the Mask, on October 6th on Nuclear Blast. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.